Hello, it is DC. I am an MLM dropout. Tonight we are watching part 2 of the expert testimony in the Travel Max trial from Dr. Bill Keep. And I have a special guest who's going to remain off camera and off the microphone to potentially give some commentary as we watch the next part of the trial. And before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and run the intro. So glad you're here, and I think we're going to have a great conversation tonight. All righty, let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me know. Hey, Delaney. Quick question, Delaney. Is my audio okay? I'm having some issues on my end, and I just want to make sure. It sounds like it's buzzing on my end, but maybe that's just user error. All right. I'm gonna try to get the screen a little bigger. There we go. Perfect. And I might speed up the speaking as well, so we can get through some of this. And I think this is where we were at. Okay, great. Thank you.
Distributor bought 100 of these and put them in his garage?
No, I'm a little uncomfortable with part of your phrase earlier on. Part of your phrase earlier on said, them buying it and putting it in there, or buying something of, you used the term excessive value, and I'm a little unclear by what you meant by that.
Well, we've already gone over the issue of value.
Okay.
Value is determined in the market, and we have some testimony that these things sell for value.
Okay, let me try to turn up the audio real quick. Okay, let me.
So I think that on the issue of value of a travel product, you would refer to somebody who is an expert in
Yes.
travel. And
Yes.
take their testimony over yours.
But I am qualified enough to know that there is value there, which is what I said
You
earlier.
would defer to the travel experts.
Okay, great. Thank you,
How much
Delaney.
value?
As to the intrinsic value, or retail, or market value.
Market value.
Thank you. Okay. So earlier,
Okay.
Dr. Keep, earlier you said, the incentive exceeded in my mind any notion as to the value of the pack. But in actuality.
Oh, sorry, Melanie.
That really value is
It looks
determined by
like
the marketplace.
the other way on here. Thank you. Oh, Delaney. Okay, got it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Somebody else who has expertise.
No, and here's why. Because if I agree that the value in the pack is $500, then I suggest my conclusion is the same, that the incentive to buy the pack far exceeds the value in the pack.
Mm.
Well, this sounds like something ethereal to me. The incentive, you mean floating around in the air?
Oh, no, the financial
The value of the pack is the value of the pack. And why somebody buys the pack, you don't know.
Yes, I do.
You do not. Did you talk to any of the distributors who bought these packs?
I do based on behavior.
Yeah.
Which I believe is the best indicator of market
Any
performance.
possibility, Dr. Keith, that the distributor bought it because it was valued at what the market value?
I'm going to pause it really quickly. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think? What do you think of his style of talking to the expert? Okay, so he said that he's a little argumentative, and he also noted that I didn't note this yesterday, that this is a judge hearing and not a jury hearing, so it's not necessarily a huge deal that he isn't super likable. And then what was the last part? He doesn't necessarily have to be super likable, not that any lawyer really has to be likable, but sometimes that matters when there's a jury present, and there's not in this case. It's just in front of the judge.
To that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Now, you've already testified
Hey,
that
Lori.
the majority of consumption in direct selling companies is for personal use by distributors.
I believe that, did I say majority? We say majority? Okay, I'll agree with majority. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've already,
Yes.
you've agreed that individuals move through a direct selling program based upon their personal volume, how much their personal wholesale volume is in group volume, correct?
That's correct. When you say move, I'm a little uncomfortable with that term move.
Well, they get commissions and they move up in the program.
They get commission.
Okay, my husband's gonna type his commentary into the chat box potentially, and then he'll also maybe tell me stuff. We're kind of flying. We've never done this before together, so yes.
Based on the volumes they generate by their activities.
Now, by that analysis, Dr. Keith, that would make every direct selling company, Amway, Shackley, Mary Kay, all of them pyramids, because
Shout out Mary Kay.
the incentive to buy the Amway products, what was your word?
Just say you're my spouse.
Just that I'm your spouse.
Yeah,
All right, I'm gonna say in the chat that I'm an attorney.
you are. Oh yeah, well I said that you are an attorney. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, continue.
The incentive exceeds, in my mind, any notion as to the value of the product, because it came along with a business opportunity. Isn't that what you're saying?
Yes.
You're saying that Amway, Shackley, Mary Kay are all pyramids?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you added a lot to that question. At first you said, is it true that these kinds of businesses, that people move up based on volume and that there's incentive to build volume? I agree with that. You then asked me, you connected my earlier statement, which was that there was a strong incentive to buy the packs, that far
Yes.
exceeded the value of the pack, to the incentive that the people at Amway or Shackley have to buy the products and to engage in the business of being an Amway and Shackley. I don't agree with that connection.
Well, you've indicated basically that you're concerned about economic incentives that drive people to buy products in multi-level marketing companies. Is that what you've said?
Yes.
But there are economic incentives in all direct selling companies to buy products either for resale or for personal use.
Yes.
And there are economic incentives in Travel Max as well. It's no different than any other to buy these products, which we've already recognized are viable products for personal use or for resale.
There are incentives to do that, yes.
I think what you're saying is,
I have a quick question. I know you're typing something, but just from what you've been listening to, do you think that he comes across as a credible expert, or do you have any critiques for him, for Dr. Bilkeep? Okay, so he said that he appreciates his position of not overstating his credibility or his position. And there are some times where he wishes that when the attorney's trying to push him off his position, that he isn't pushed off as easily, just from what he's heard so far.
You think that the incentives are too much?
No, what I'm saying is the incentives are misdirected.
And you say all of this without ever having talked to one Travel Max distributor, without ever having gone to one Travel Max meeting, and without ever having talked to anybody at Travel Max.
I read 2 transcripts of meetings, and watched one on tape, and looked at presentations by audio and video presentations by Travel Max with regard to becoming part of the organization.
Now, you told me, Dr. Keith, that you told, I think, Mr. Turner, I think you said that as you read the materials, the focus was the real opportunity to make the big money is on moving these packs and not to be involved in travel.
Correct.
I believe
That was your word.
Yes.
The real opportunity. Okay. I'd like to hand you the Travel Max manual. And I'd like you to show me in there where it says the real opportunity to make the big money.
It doesn't say that
It
in there. I
doesn't
don't
say
believe
that
so.
anywhere. And
That's my analysis.
That's your opinion. Well, that's your conjecture.
There is a statement made in the tape we saw yesterday.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you.
Your Honor, the
show me-
witness should be allowed to state the basis upon which his response was made, as opposed
Well, he
to
wasn't
counsel
being
being.
responsive to the question, Your Honor.
Okay, I believe he's admitting that he didn't find it in any of the materials from Travel Max.
I think the witness was also indicating that he did find that someplace, and that being in the
It was
presentation.
at that meet, it was at the, off the tape or something, wasn't it?
That's correct.
And you'll admit, Dr. Keith, that the presentation that we saw was not a presentation by Travel Max, the company.
Well, it's by an independent
I don't
consultant.
know who those people were or who they worked for.
Yeah.
My impression was that they were our independent representatives.
I don't think, there will be no evidence that any of those individuals are Travel Max employees or officials.
I'll believe you.
You'll accept that.
I'll believe you, I guess.
So what you may have had there is you may have seen.
So let me ask you a question. If you want to type your response, that's fine. Is there any issue that a company would run into with their independent consultant making promises, even if the company itself doesn't state the bad things that their consultants are like promising to the people they're trying to sell to? He's going to respond in the chat.
A presentation. And of course, as I looked at the presentation, I don't know, did you see the transcript? Is that exhibit number 2, your exhibit? Of the September.
There are two transcripts, I believe they're identified as plaintiff's exhibit 2 and plaintiff's exhibit 3.
The meeting of the 24th, of course, we didn't get a transcript of everything that occurred, but we got it almost up until the end. It was about 22 pages that we got. And
Yep.
I didn't see the word, as a matter of fact, the first 20 pages were just talking about the glorious world of travel and how you can make money in the travel industry.
Well, they're making
Is that
money by
correct?
selling the
That's correct.
packs.
Matter of fact, until I think about the last page.
So Melissa says you have to examine the entire compensation plan and look at the earnings of the sales force and determine if they make more from retail sales or from recruiting. And my husband said these are the circumstances where the law could deem them employees based on facts and circumstances. Interesting.
Page 22, I think out of 22 pages, do they even mention the compensation plan, and does the word TRIPAC ever occur?
I'd have to check my,
It wouldn't surprise you though, would it, if that's, you want me to show you the transcript?
Let me ask you another question. Is it rude? Like, I know there are certain things that he can do because, is this cross-examining the expert? Or like, why does he keep interrupting him after he tries to answer and then he doesn't even get into his answer and then the attorney cuts him off. Is he like allowed to do that? Is he allowed to do that and it's still considered rude, or? Okay, so he said he's being a jerk. I mean, it's like it's very, I mean, he's allowed to do some things. He's not, it is cross-examination, so there is some leeway, and I think he's going to clarify in the chat. We're going to keep playing.
I don't know if the last 2 pages, but I would agree that the very large portion of it was directed towards travel.
Yes. As a matter of fact, where is the judge in that?
Yeah, we believe the transcript and the video recording, which the transcript is in part based on, is part of the record. I don't know if the witness needs to actually be that exacting where he remembers every word that was said in that
I want to
transcript.
know what he understands, Your Honor.
Okay, is it your understanding that travel was the primary talk in this presentation?
In terms of primary, the bulk of discussion,
So he said he still might be a jerk or bully, but he has to worry less about that in front of the judge than he might in front of a jury.
yeah, especially in the beginning.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at up till the first time I ever see the comp plan talked about is on page 22 out of, well, there's only a few lines at the top of page 23. But until then, all we're talking about is travel and
Yes, he doesn't have to
passing
get
out
the
your
jury to
card
like him.
and getting people to travel. Is that not correct?
Okay, well, I need to go back through it, but I accept that.
Well, can you find anything for me up to page,
If you'd like me to look through it, I will.
yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Were you basing any of your opinions on the fact that more discussion was about compensation in that meeting? I guess what I'm asking is, are we getting into an area we don't need to get into?
No, my opinion was based on incentives, not on how much of the time in the meeting was spent doing what.
That's what I would have assumed.
I have another question. In a jury, in a judge, like when they're before the judge and there's no jury present, is it normal? Is it normal for the judge to be this participatory in like this setting, or is this unusual, or is this a style based on judge's personality, like in this type of setting? Okay, you're gonna answer in the comments. Okay.
We're looking, well, what I'm trying to get at, Dr. Keep, is we're looking at a bit of a micro picture, a little meeting in a little hotel.
So you're gonna say it's
No,
the outlier?
Let me
Got
correct
it.
the records. We're talking about several meetings at
Yeah.
several hotels,
Your Honor, I would,
as reflected in the
I would
transcript,
appreciate-
the testimony, and the
Okay.
video recording.
I said what I'm talking about. I didn't say what the record says.
Sass.
What we are
Sassy.
talking about.
Your Honor, I don't think editorializing is really, if you
I
have an
agree.
objection, you should make objections.
Right. You may ask the witness what he is referring to, whether it's one meeting, two meetings. I mean, if you want to narrow that to.
Well, no, because I was going a different direction, Your Honor.
All right.
What I'm referencing is we have a picture. We had a picture in this case from the state side of, a meeting or a couple meetings, a few, these breakout sessions, one-on-one. But we don't really get the big picture at this meeting of what the macro picture of what travel man.
If you have an objection, object. Otherwise, don't comment on the other attorney's questions. That's fair.
The corporation is doing in the United States, doing.
I had access to brochures put out by Travel Max to describe the same compensation program that was outlined in the transcripts I reviewed, which caused me to believe that what I was seeing in the transcripts was similar to what the company was doing.
At no place in any of the company's materials are any earnings representations made. Is that not correct?
There are examples.
No, there is an explanation of how the plan works, but I would defy you to find any earnings representations or hypotheticals in the company materials.
Your Honor,
Would
we
you
will,
disagree?
I have a question. Is that a defense where it's not spelled out in our manual, so we can't get in trouble for that, even if our independent consultants are behaving poorly? Okay, you're gonna answer in the chat.
Let me finish, please. Would you disagree with that statement?
I would have to refer back to the material I went through.
Can you think of any at this point in time?
I cannot think of refer to a specific promotion brochure described a hypothetical earnings.
If y'all in the chat have questions, just go ahead and pop them in the chat, and he will answer them as they come in.
Thank you. Nor did the suggestion that people are supposed to buy 29 tri-packs ever occur at any place.
Okay, so he says depends on what the law actually says. I don't have the statute in front of me, unfortunately. Hard to comment without the law in black and white. Okay, good point. And this was this case happened in the state of Kentucky, so it wasn't in or whatever this. I don't even know exactly what it was called, but basically the company was told to stop doing business until it could be determined if it was a pyramid scheme, and the state of Kentucky lost whatever the not the restraining order, but I had it up earlier. I'll pull it up again.
In any company material did.
I never saw the words that people need to buy 29 tri-packs in any of the company brochures I looked at.
You know, Dr. Keith, well, you may or may not know, but direct selling companies operate basically through tens of thousands, if not millions, of independent distributors doing meetings in small towns throughout America every day.
I agree with that.
And those distributors, they may vary.
Different laws state by state to determine whether a company is running an illegal pyramid scheme. And then Melissa says, and that's where multi-level marketing companies are sneaky too. They don't outright tell reps to do certain things, but those things are rewarded. So the reps do the things anyways. And really quickly, the court found no violation of the consumer protection statutes and therefore no threat of harm to the public. The compliance procedures of the company are sufficient to provide for the protection of the citizens of the Commonwealth, pending the outcome of the other litigation in this matter. The court strongly encourages the Attorney General's office to take full advantage of the apparent willingness of TravelMax to cooperate in overseeing its Kentucky operations. Spoiler alert. They already they know. Yeah, sorry. I should have put a spoiler alert up.
From company materials from time to time. Is that correct?
I would assume that to be true.
That doesn't make, but let's just assume that they do. Of course, what would you expect? Let's assume that basically you were in charge of the Consumer Protection Division, and it came to your attention that some Mary Kay distributors were making some inappropriate earnings representations, or even suggesting that people buy more product than they need. Would you have them arrested?
Oh,
No.
That's not my area of expertise. I don't know.
yeah, because he's not a lawyer, correct? Was that a dumb question to ask him? Because he has a PhD in business. He doesn't have a Juris Doctor.
Would you without let me ask you this, would you without contacting the company to get its explanation of its program, would you?
Is the point of those questions when you're picking at an expert witness to get them riled up and make them like seem less less of an expert if they were in front of a jury? Or is he like, what's the point of doing that? Like, he cannot, not you. That lawyer knows that a PhD in business cannot make a legal determination of something. He's going to answer in the chat.
Sue them and get an injunction from them operating in your state?
I have no idea. I don't know how lawyers operate.
Well, I'd like to know what you would do.
Your Honor, the witness has already indicated that he's not qualified to express an opinion in that area because he's not an attorney.
You would agree,
I'm going to sustain the objection. The Attorney General is required to
something.
enforce the laws of the Commonwealth. If they believe there's a violation, then they should seek to enforce it. You know, I'm not commenting on the means of enforcement, and I don't have any criminal case before
A real head scratcher, dumb question, and every lawyer in the room, including the judge, knows it's dumb.
me. I have a civil action, and I don't intend to comment on what occurred.
no, I understand your
Okay.
honor, but we do have a company that's been out of business here for 3 months, as well as all of their distributors in the civil case. Of course, you would agree that closing down a company and arresting its distributors, from a marketing professor standpoint, could be somewhat of an impediment to the marketing future of that company.
I would agree with that.
Could have a major impact on its suppliers, on how they view the company.
Depending on how the whole issue resolved, may or may not have a major impact. Some companies have had very negative things happen to them, and because of the way they handled those things, for example, the Tylenol case or something, they came out looking pretty like they did the right thing, so to speak.
Dr. Keep, what I was moving toward is we were looking at a bit of a micro picture here when we're just looking at some local presentations and statements by individual distributors. Are we not?
I think I sort of answered that in that I was looking at company brochures and those transcripts, and that's where my conclusions came from.
Yeah, but you've already stated that you can't remember seeing any hypotheticals, and you can't remember seeing any instances of telling people to be inventory loaded in the materials.
There were examples of people building down.
Examples, isn't that how all direct selling companies work? You don't build a downline, you don't.
Absolutely, that's how
That is how the industry works.
Oh,
direct
just
selling
say it out
firms
loud.
build downlines.
Legitimate direct selling companies.
Yes.
Of course, that's how
Legitimate and
pyramids work, too.
illegitimate companies do,
We
Yes.
understand that.
right? Legitimate and illegitimate, so legitimate multi-level marketing companies and pyramid schemes both build downlines.
But there are many elements that we can call upon to differentiate a in the
Objection
business world,
redundant.
in the marketing world,
Some of the things the attorney is trying to get the expert to agree to seem like trivial truths. Of course, a criminal prosecution will hurt the company.
direct selling or multi-level marketing company from a pyramid. Is that correct?
We don't make that legal determination.
I didn't ask for illegal. I said in the marketing world that
The attorney is doing this because he won't
you
be able to
understand
talk
there's a
about
difference
things in closing
between a
argument that didn't
pyramid.
come out in testimony.
Yes, I believe.
Oh,
that.
I didn't know
believe
that.
So, yes,
sometimes the line's a little bit fine, is it not?
I would agree with that.
Sometimes we have cases that basically help illuminate where that line is. Is that not correct?
I believe that's true.
The leading case in Kentucky is Dare to Be Great. Would you agree?
As much as I know about that case, I agree.
It's the only case. I mean, of appellate.
In
Did you read
Kentucky,
it?
yeah,
Did you read it?
and I did not.
You did. Now, you were called upon to be an expert witness on the issue.
I'm going to ask you a quick question. I'll keep playing. Is it an issue when an expert witness talking about the business structure doesn't look at multiple lawsuits? Does that hurt his credibility as an expert? And in my humble opinion, there is no line, but that's just me.
Of I'm sure what. The state has alleged case, and I assume you're called upon to be an expert witness on whether or not we're seeing the elements of a pyramid here. But you did not read the Dare. We're seeing the elements of a pyramid here. But you did not read the Dare to Be Great case.
I was not called upon, and I did not intend to suggest to the state whether or not this was a pyramid. I was called on to analyze the retail activity or retail labeled activity that I saw.
Well, was your conclusion that basically the incentives here were to just recruit and headhunt and not to sell products? Was that?
I believe there were numerous incentives here.
I wonder. Sorry, let me see why I zoomed in accidentally. Maybe
Strongest incentive
the video did it automatically.
was to
Sorry, let me just Control 0. Let me just try to fix that real quick. My apologies. Okay. Play.
But to sell products.
Not that I mind that Bab's
Yes.
head is cut
Products
off
were-
in this
Well, let's just
picture,
look at
but
the,
I don't know why
let's-
it messed up all of a sudden.
What you say basically in trying to determine where a company is going in the marketing arena, you have to look at not just what happens in a room at the executive inn, you have to look at what's happening company-wide. To be fair,
From a business standpoint, yes, maybe not from a legal standpoint.
and of course, you haven't had the opportunity to go to the company headquarters.
I've not.
He's there for a more generic analysis. Is the business model good? Is it manipulative?
Meet with any of the company officials
I have not. I think I
to interview them as to basically what was their goal or strategy in unveiling this company.
did not talk to anyone from the company.
Do you know how many inside travel agents they have?
I have another question. Oh, hi Caspian. Caspian's sitting on his lap. Caspian's our dog. I have a question. Is it an issue for an expert to, like an expert in business in this situation, to not talk to people running the company? Like, should it just matter what's written in the sales guides and the compensation plan, etc.?
I don't
He's gonna
recall.
answer
They
in the
mentioned at one
comments.
point in the tutorial, I believe, but I don't recall.
Do you know what their sales are?
They quoted a figure at some point of $5 million a month in travel.
Now, in taking a look at the macro picture of the company, would it be significant?
Why would it make his testimony
Let's
stronger?
just put apart the VIP package and the and the tutorial product, which we've already talked about.
So he just said it would have given him more of an appearance of thorough knowledge of something.
Would it not be significant if that company had achieved a substantial sales volume in
So Melissa said, I would think talking to the company wouldn't count as a good source because they're going to present a biased picture to make themselves look good. I don't know.
in the travel bookings arena in the United States? Would that be significant to you?
It would be significant to me to know where that volume came from.
Well, travel bookings are travel bookings. I'm talking about
No, they're not
The
just
booking
travel
of tickets.
bookings.
by individuals, let's assume group tours. Let's assume most of them are sales to non-participants.
I disagree with your statement that bookings are bookings. This is for structuring a sales force. That's what direct marketing, network marketing, multi-level marketing is fundamentally a way to structure a sales force. If this sales force generated travel, or if travel was generated by people other than in the sales force, or to what degree other than from the sales force, those would be the questions I'd be interested in.
Well, earlier in your testimony, you basically indicated that you made an analysis and felt that there was not enough emphasis on creating a
Who cares how much sales are unless expenses are also considered?
company that has travel bookings as opposed to the sale of their VIP getaways package or their tutorial. That was your testimony, was it not?
Based on the activities associated with these meetings and the recruitment of people into the system, yes.
Now, do you know how long this company has been around?
92, 93, something like that, I believe.
95.
95.
Year and a half, less than a year and a half.
That sounds like even worse.
Less than a year and a half.
Why is this so
That
zoomed
company is
in?
doing $5 million a month in travel bookings.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the use of this $5 million figure. It has no relevance to the amount of travel bookings that have taken place in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. This lawsuit is about violating Kentucky's pyramid statute. We're not suing under the United States Code.
Your Honor, this is about whether or not this company is conducting a pyramid scheme and to basically confine the evaluation.
One of my biggest annoyances with multi-level marketing companies, in my opinion, they don't coach you up on considering your expenses, your net income rather than gross. Good point. And I certainly never got that training when I was in both of my multi-level marketing companies.
Valuation to what this company does as to a newly arrived state, and to not look at basically what this company's record is really to be myopic.
I'll overrule the objection. Is the question whether or not $5 million a month in a year and a half of business is influence?
Would you say a company that has basically in a year and a half has grown its travel bookings, put aside the other products that you seem to have a problem with, to $5 million a month, has had a significant impact in the travel marketplace.
I would characterize that as a growing company. I don't know the impact. I'm not sure the complete size of the travel industry. $50 million, $60 million is not a lot of money,
Okay, well,
depending on the reference point.
We've had evidence on this point, so let me help you along. We've had evidence that basically there are about 38,000 travel agencies in the United States, Dr. Keith. We've had evidence that based on its sales volume,
Okay.
TravelMax is catapulted into the top 10% of travel agencies in the United States.
So,
Would you say that that is a significant factor that should be taken into account as to whether or not this is a for real business?
well, he's not I don't think the argument is that it's a for real business. He's arguing that or the state of Kentucky is saying that it's harming potentially consumers because it might be a pyramid scheme. I don't think the pyramid schemes are about the compensation plan, not necessarily about not having a product, from what I understand. My senior director and Mary Kay put some effort into teaching us about tracking expenses, but as you move up the ranks, the expenses grow and grow and grow. That's a good point.
I would say that is a factor that may or may not be relevant to the direct marketing that I was asked to look at. But it is a positive thing.
I mean, if I hired you, Dr. Keith, as a marketing expert because I'm trying to understand the travel industry and I have a young company and I wanted to understand how it was doing, you would tell me as my consultant that I'm doing pretty.
Okay, just as a side note, and I'm just going to use Young Living as an example because it's my most recent experience. Young Living makes I'm not going to say a profit. They make what they need to make when the brand partners order the products from the company. There's no need to necessarily look for a customer. The brand partners are the customer. So the TravelMax people buying those kits or those packs obviously pumped money into TravelMax, but that doesn't necessarily mean those packs were being used appropriately. I don't know. Maybe let me know if I'm off base in the comments. Melissa said, I was very close friends with my immediate director and she had zero filter, so I heard everything. Love that. Hey, I love a non-filtered moment for sure.
Good there, wouldn't you?
Not necessarily. In other words, I would be interested in looking at what sometimes now are being called benchmarks, but what are looking at levels of performance regarding that $5 million. In other words, my per person sales could be way below the industry average. I just have a lot of people out there.
Ooh.
And in fact, I could be getting ready
Good
to
point.
go out of business because my costs which are not reflected in sales, of course.
Yes.
I could be buying a lot of advertising or getting a lot of people to sell for me, and actually my costs could be eating me up, and that would not be recognized in that sales figure.
Yes.
However, the opposite could be true in that I could have a very efficiently run operation, and if I was to look at my operating expenses relative to my sales, I could then find that this is a very healthy operation doing very well. So I can't characterize the notion of growing like that as either being, there are a number of instances of firms which have grown very rapidly and public firms whose stock have grown very rapidly, only to find
Lawyer
the firm
comment coming in
crash
hot.
because in fact, people were looking at sales and not looking at the entire financial picture of the firm.
Okay, well, let me help you along, give you a little more information because you weren't here. Testimony of Dale Paisley, 25-year partner, Coopers and Lybrand, chief financial officer, who's worked with hundreds of companies, including Fortune 500 companies, says that TravelMax is a company that has had unprecedented growth and has met its budgets better than any other startup company he's ever worked with at Coopers and Lybrand. Is that helpful to you?
I believe he said that. I don't know that
I said, is it helpful to you?
I don't know if I
Your
come to the same
analysis.
conclusion. I'd need to see the numbers.
Sales is a meaningless data point without context.
Respect those credentials.
I would not respect the conclusion. Because
Well, you're the state's witness, I understand that.
Yes,
getting-
the cough feels very
I
triggering
appreciate that,
after
and he's the
several years of the
representative of the
panini
company.
at this
I'm
point.
getting paid to come to my own conclusions.
All I asked you was, is that a significant factor that you would take into account?
Yeah, and
You wouldn't dismiss. I mean,
I wouldn't
you
dismiss
come
any
here to be
information.
objective, not just to take a unilateral position. You come here with an
Yes.
open mind.
I wouldn't dismiss any
So if I
information.
present to you testimony or evidence of acknowledged experts, you wouldn't just summarily disregard them, would you?
I would not accept their conclusions as mine, but I would not disregard them.
Of course, you didn't have the benefit either, as you say. You haven't reviewed the financials, haven't been to the company, haven't seen the number of employees, don't even know that they have 6.
There's a lawyer comment coming in, but I have another question, and maybe this is going to be answered. Is that an issue that he didn't have? Now, again, this is like a preliminary. Okay, good point. Why is he lingering on that too long? Just an opinion?
I don't know.
What okay.
60 inside travel agents booking travel for their outside travel force. Do you know anything about the outside travel agent industry?
Only what I've learned in studying for this case.
Yes. It is a significant new force, the outside travel agent industry and the travel industry. Did you learn that?
He's not going to score any more points here.
Yes.
Did you watch the videos of the earlier hearing?
No.
So you didn't hear Mr. Amelick's testimony?
No.
So everything that you know about the testimony that occurred in this case from experts such as Dr. King, Mr. Paisley, who was qualified as an expert, and Mr. Amelick, everything you know came from Mr. Turner or somebody in his office. Is that correct?
No, I listened to the video in the tutorial which talked about the growth of the independent agent.
Now, excuse me. I said everything you know about their testimony, the testimony of Mr. Amelick, Mr. Paisley, and Dr. King, everything you know, if you know anything, came from.
I apologize. I thought you were asking me, did I know that the independent agents were a significant force? And you then said to me that other people had said that this is in fact true. I don't know what those other people said. I do know that I saw in a TravelMax video that in fact independent agents are becoming an important part of the industry. And I accept that.
And did you know that Mr. Amelick indicated that based on his experience in the travel industry, and keeping in mind this is a man that represents airlines, travel agencies, travel associations, lectures at Cornell School of Hospitality and Hotel. This
I hope
man,
we're not going to hear the same litany that we heard from Mr. Amelick,
We're
repeated
not.
by counsel.
Is that the state of Kentucky, their attorney, is that bad? Is that like a bad habit for him not to say objection, whatever, like, because he's interrupting without no, sir. Sorry, Caspian's being bad. Do you know what I'm asking?
We're not. I was moving on to my question.
All right.
I don't need the editorials.
All right. Let's ask the question. What was the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you aware that that gentleman with those credentials basically said that this was one of the most successful startup travel organizations in the travel industry, that their growth is unprecedented, their ability to build an organization that books travel, that aspect that you are not concerned with. You are concerned with this other product, but travel. Were you aware of that?
First of all,
Well, no, first, please answer my question. Were you aware
I
of
was
that?
not aware that he said that.
Okay, thank you. Now, my next question is, would that be a factor of any significance in your analysis?
I would not discount any piece of information, though you earlier, in your first question, which I wasn't allowed to finish, your first in the previous question to this one, you said that I disregarded the travel side, but prior to that, you asked me if I'd be interested in what I consider the $5 million a month in sales to be an important issue, and I said it would be an issue that I would want to consider. So I'm not disregarding the travel side, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh my gosh, that guy coughing.
And in fact,
Let me ask you, how much more do you have?
Quite a bit.
Okay. I need to take about a 10-minute break. Let's see what's going on in the back. Let's take a brief recess.
This is very casual. This feels very casual to me.
Okay, we're back on the record. You may proceed with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Honor. Dr. Keith, just so I understand what we're not arguing about, I assume you really don't have problems with
Okay,
direct selling
getting a little feisty there, meeting sass with sass. I approve. Me too.
as a channel of distribution.
Absolutely not.
One of many channels.
I'm guessing this multi-level marketing company is no longer around. I don't know anyone who's ever used a travel agent. Yeah. Yeah, I think they closed down relatively soon after this trial
Yes.
or whatever, this issue with
Retail
Kentucky.
stores,
But they were in
commercials.
states all over the United States. I
All of
think.
those are forms of retail.
Direct mail. This
Yes.
is just a channel.
Yes.
Uses networks of individuals to get out the product.
Yes.
Amway often uses the expression, "We're changing the way America shops." You ever heard that?
I've
Oh my
seen that
God.
phrase.
Kind of in a way, it's kind of what it's saying is we're basically teaching people to change their buying techniques from where they buy from, and of course, there is an economic incentive involved if you buy from us.
I agree that's what they're attempting to do.
Attempting to do.
Whether it to be about a
Is it successful? That's
$7
the
billion a year company.
Yes, they're very large.
You know, they sell.
dang. Amway was 7 billion. What did you say? Billion? Oh, I'm just gonna. I assume we said billion. Holy cow! Back in 1997.
Travel memberships. Did you know that?
I did not. I haven't seen their most recent. I know
Yep.
they expanded their product line.
Of course, if a distributor buys travel membership, his upline gets credit. Is that correct? You would
I
expect.
don't know that to be a fact, but I wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise you. Any product they sell, the upline gets credit.
That would not surprise me.
Any product they also buy, the upline
Actually,
gets
I guess
credit.
there's an incentive then to buy those travel memberships.
There's an incentive to sell them if you're getting credit for them. The incentive to buy them would be presumably the worth of the membership.
Well, what if it also contributes basically to your personal volume requirement? Remember, get admissions in the multi-level.
Then that would also be an
You need to
incentive.
do personal volume.
And as long as it counted, that would also be an incentive.
Maybe used for their personal use, but as long
Oh,
as it's
personal
fairly
use again
priced
coming in.
and used, that's
I think that is such an issue that what you buy counts towards your sales, or it counts towards your volume in most multi-level marketing companies, and I'm guessing in Travel Max as well, because Babs keeps making the point about personal consumption. And I mean, yeah, there's a rule about the 70% rule, but who's checking on that? No one. No one is checking on that.
It's okay.
I'm still a little uncomfortable with that generalization. We went from incentives to everything being okay. It's an incentive for them to buy it if it has worth that they think is equal to the price. It's an incentive for them to buy it if the combination of the worth they see in that travel service and the additional benefit they get because they've added on to their personal volume, that's another incentive. And so there are, or could be, incentives for them to buy and use the product.
There's all kinds of incentives to get into a multi-level marketing company. There's social relationships.
Yes.
Oh, so we're gonna have to spend a lot of money just to be friends with people? That seems weak. I don't know. Is that a weak point, do you think, Dave?
Save money on your taxes by having a home business.
I'm not completely familiar with that, but I believe there is an incentive there.
Make a little extra income.
Yes.
Get your friends to buy and make a little extra income off them.
Yes.
Off your friends.
Have a little more control over your own destiny.
Yes.
Most people in multi-level, as a matter of fact, Dr. Keep, are part-time. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that to be true.
90% are part-time.
That would not surprise me.
So the volumes that you might expect to see generated by large
Yeah,
multi-level
debatable.
marketing companies per distributor
Super
are
debatable.
relatively low per distributor compared to the volume you'd expect to see generated by a full-time manufacturer's rep.
Yes, I would expect that it will be lower.
Matter of fact, the
I think the point that the expert is trying to get at is the sales figure is inflated somewhat by people trying to make volume. I think so too. I think that's a good point.
average productivity of a distributor, such as a distributor Amway, is about $1,000 a year.
The sales or commission?
Sales volume.
Volume,
That's
not
that $100 a
necessarily
month,
sales,
$80,
not
$90 a month.
necessarily
Okay.
sales.
Most for personal use.
Yeah.
So if we have an industry that's been around for 40, 50 years or more, distributors
Just because it's
basically
been around doesn't
part-time,
mean it's good.
having an economic incentive to buy for themselves, to use, find other people to come in. You agree that these sort of companies have been in Kentucky for more than a quarter century.
I have a question, and maybe this is a dumb question, but so there's you said earlier there's no pyramid scheme laws. There's like deceptive business practice laws and fraud and stuff.
There's no federal law. There's no.
Okay, so there's no federal pyramid scheme statute. Oh no. Oh, you're okay. You're okay. We're still going a little bit. We may have to finish the rest of this another night and do a part 3.
I believe that to be true.
Having a volume per distributor of about $1,000 a year, but we would call that retailing, wouldn't we? I mean, we've accomplished an objective where if you have 1 million people doing $1,000, you got $1 billion sales, don't you?
Yes.
Yes,
In volume of something.
in volume. Yeah, and products, whatever the products are. Travel memberships.
I'm uncomfortable. Earlier, you asked me, did I think there was
Sorry, I have another question after you finish your answer. Is there ever a situation where businesses, or can you think of a situation where businesses were able to get away with things because of the state they were doing business in, and they were, let me think about this question before I ask it. Does it benefit businesses like multi-level marketing companies that there isn't a federal blanket of, hey, don't be a freaking pyramid scheme? Because seems like there's more instruction from the states. Okay, I think you're answering in the comments.
Direct selling, and said I think there were pyramid schemes. And I said, yes, I thought both existed.
Okay.
It seems to me that now you're characterizing an organization that
Right.
generates large volumes that have many members. That description, it seems to me, could fit either of those categories.
Okay, but we know that the court has to decide here, though. Number one, you don't take exception with direct selling.
Not at all.
So you don't take exception with multi-level marketing.
Not at all.
And you probably don't take exception with the binary plan, which is merely another type of compensation plan.
Not at all.
Okay. So the court is going to have to make some decision here. It's going to have to conclude, because the statute basically says you can't have pyramids. So now we have to go on an exploration of what is a pyramid versus what is legitimate MLM.
So Melissa says, yes, absolutely. It benefits them. They can base their headquarters out of whatever state has the friendliest laws, Utah being a big one. Do state, I guess this is maybe too broad of a question, but do states ever get in trouble for creating a situation where where multi-level marketing thrive and then the federal court steps in? Or is that mostly a situation where laws would have to change because public opinion changes and they put pressure on the people who legislate stuff like that?
So we're learning, and we're learning that this is an industry with 7 million people doing this, right?
I accept
One
that.
person in every 10 households is involved in this. You're likely to go into almost every lunchroom in America and find somebody trying to peddle a Tupperware
Call your
product
legislators,
or some
everyone.
bottle of vitamins.
I would accept that that's probably true.
Yeah.
Or possibly true.
As Jay Leno said, a plague on all your neighbors' houses. You don't have to answer that.
I don't think it's a plague.
You're right. It isn't a plague. It's just another part of the American
Oh,
dream, right?
Babs.
Yes.
And those products that get out there at $1,000 production to all those people is just another method of getting products out to the American public.
Yes.
And earlier you indicated, well, I understand they're doing 5 million and they've gone into the top
Yeah,
10%
gross.
of travel agencies in the country in a year and a half, and those are all interesting factors. Kind of interested in seeing the per capita production. Now, this company has, at the time of this restraining order, it had between 20 and 30,000 reps.
30,000
I'd seen
reps.
a figure of 12,000.
So there was a restraining order put in place, and all 30,000 reps were not allowed to do business until this got resolved. A bit of an eye roll. It's not just another method of distribution. Bad answer, expert. Well,
Something.
so I guess I have a question. When you're an expert witness, like obviously I've been watching the civil trial with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and there's a range of stubbornness with each expert. Do you think this is from this is early on in his career, like testifying as an expert, or like what would your answer have looked like? I know you're not a business expert, but like what as a lawyer, what would you have wanted your expert to say that was still truthful?
Okay, well, let's lower it. That may even make the average better.
I don't have any.
Let's say they have
evidence.
20,000 for the sake of example.
Okay, for the sake of example.
And again, I'm not trying to rag on Dr. Keep. I think it's just an interesting look, and we have limited. Okay. As simple as I disagree. We just have limited, obviously, footage from stuff like this. And so it's nice to be able to watch it. And again, this is very early on in his career, like testifying, and in his career. He's already a doctor. He already has his PhD at this point. No, Caspian. No. Sorry, our dog is wanting another treat.
And they're doing, and this company is doing, forget the volume in the travel VIP package product. or the tutorial and doing $5 million a month just in travel sales. What you and I normally think
It's definitely interesting to watch someone in the early days of their career in comparison to where they are now. Yes, absolutely.
of as travel, buy a ticket, group tours. That's about $2,500 a year productivity per rep in this company. Travel bookings. Do you agree?
I didn't crank the numbers, but
Yes,
I'll
that's
accept
right.
that. I'll accept that.
Take a shot every time Babs brings up the 5 million thing. Yeah, we would all be plastered.
That's right.
I-
2.5 times the average of retailing of other major direct selling companies we've already acknowledged are just fine. Isn't that correct?
I don't know that to be a fact.
Well, you've already testified that you accept that.
You said that at Amway, they sell about $1,000 a year on average. You're now saying that, and you said,
Product volume through those companies about 1,000 a year, and we'll have testimony from experts to that effect.
now then you said industry. If you are asking me to agree with the statement that,
I'm not asking you to agree with anything at this point.
I'm sorry,
I'm just
misunderstood.
saying that at $5 million a month and 20,000 distributors, we're at about 2.5 times the industry average of products, retailing products, travel products that you don't seem to have a problem with.
I'm not clear what the question is here. Well, which part am I agreeing to?
Good
In your
question.
analysis as to whether or not this is a company that is engaged in moving products to the ultimate consumer, or in your terms, retailing, would it not be significant that the productivity per rep of this company is 2.5 times that of well-established direct
Yes, is there a
selling
question in
companies?
there?
Would that be something that you think should be taken into account by you and by the court in making an analysis of this company?
I would like to use any piece of information that would help me better understand the activities that the individuals are engaged in. The fact that this firm has retail sales, and that if you divide those retail sales by the number of representatives, that seems to be high relative to Amway. I would be interested in knowing that.
Oh, what would you object
I
to?
would think that would be a
Form of the question? Okay.
relevant piece of
It's
information
a,
for me.
Why would you object to the form of the question?
it's a positive factor, is it not, in making the analysis of this company?
I would need to better understand. In other words, it's an average figure. I'm very concerned about that average figure.
Well, let's just assume. I'm just going to ask you to assume that that's correct.
He's typing his
And
answer.
then we'll put on evidence. But we've already talked about it, but now I'll just ask you, just for the sake of,
The form of the question, he made 5 statements and then asked if the expert agreed to which statement. Okay. So do you think that if the lawyers for Kentucky had done maybe a more thorough job, not blocking, but at least keeping the lawyer like held to task, that they might have had a better chance with the what was it called? The restraining order, or keeping it in place until they. He's answering in the comments.
but again, we'll just ask you to assume that's correct. It's a positive thing, is it not?
It is a positive piece of information.
Someone with an open mind doing an analysis of this type of company, which I know you are, would want.
Information.
Did Mr. Turner
Absolutely.
tell you that? Did he tell you about those figures?
He sounds
No, $5
so
million,
contemptuous.
I believe.
Babs
He told you
does.
about that?
He did tell me, but there's also, it's the company also states that.
Now, you testified in the Golden Limited case, another case here in Kentucky, is that correct?
That's correct.
And of course, that case,
Hard to say. I don't have the statute in front of me. Okay, that's fair. I mean, and that's very fair.
that was a criminal case.
Yes, it was.
different statutes involved, but some similar principles you were looking at, I assume.
Some similar, some different.
Some similar, some different. That involves securities and involve mail fraud, but probably the word pyramid
Could be not close
danced
enough where
in
the
and out of
lawyering is going to make a
that
difference.
case, I assume.
I'd say that's a fair representation of it.
And of course,
Did you learn about anything in law school where lawyering was the difference that made the case and not necessarily like the law and like the evidence that was in the case?
that resulted in a conviction of the
He's answering in the
principals of
comments.
company. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
And there are some significant differences between what you would see. Well, first of all, you were, I assume you were not the only expert witness.
I believe I was not the only
There
expert.
were several experts, and again, I guess you probably testified on this same subject that you were here to
Maybe we'll do some
testify
research
on,
this week.
What?
I looked at incentives, sources of commission.
Yes, yeah. That was a problematical company, was it not?
Yes, in my analysis.
One of the reasons it's a problematical company is because they paid, they were selling gold coins, were they not?
That's correct.
Ooh,
And other items.
gold
The
coins and other
trustworthiness-
items.
Well, they're purportedly were selling gold coins, is that right?
That's correct.
Which basically most of us recognize as a commodity,
That's correct.
basically valued at whatever is the market value of gold is probably close to the market value of a gold,
There will
Okay.
be some small market.
American Gold Eagle or Krugerrand.
There will be some small market, but not a lot.
So they picked a problematical product, did they not?
Problematical.
Wouldn't you say that? from a
Problematical and
standpoint of
5
a marketing
million. Take a
professor?
shot.
Depending on what they were trying to accomplish.
Well, if you pick a product, when you sell a product basically that's a commodity, you can't very well go out in the market unless you really are a scam and sell the product for a lot more than everybody knows it's worth. It has an established value.
I don't believe they were selling it for a lot more than it was worth.
Okay. They weren't, were they?
No, they were not.
Well, that's a problem then, because you can't run a company where you don't have any profit or margins in the product you're selling. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
That's why
We're gonna save it.
companies
We're gonna finish
that
this
have
last
been
question,
around
then
for
we're
a
gonna
long
save the
time,
rest for part 3.
companies basically sell products that basically do have markups and margins so that they
Let me
can
look
pay
that up,
commissions.
Melissa.
Margins is what allow the companies to exist.
And they're often proprietary products. Could be Avon.
Oh, it is a
has its
word.
own proprietary cosmetic.
Very often.
Surprise,
Amway has its
surprise.
proprietary vitamin, Neutralite. Of course, who's to say the fact that they charge 3 times as much as if you go down to the drugstore and buy a bottle of vitamin C, I guess it's up for grabs as to what the real value of that bottle of Amway vitamins is.
I don't know that they charge 3 times as much. I've never purchased from Shackley or Amway.
I'm not asking you if they do or they don't. All I'm saying is, assuming that they do, we're not necessarily saying the incentive basically to buy those vitamins is because you're getting into a pyramid scheme.
Depending on the specific situation, if we're talking about Shackley, then I would agree with the statement that the incentive is not to get into a pyramid scheme per se.
Now, those are
Yep, learned something new, and we learned it from Babs. So, we're gonna finish the last part on another day because some of this is hard to like take in longer than an hour. And again, if y'all want to watch it, it's on YouTube, and hopefully Mr. Babner doesn't strike my video down. But maybe I'll just ride under the radar. But I think it falls under fair use. I hope it falls under. I'm still learning here, so I am going to create a part 3. We will watch the remainder of it. If y'all have any questions between now and the 3rd part, feel free to leave them as a comment on this video or send me a DM on Instagram. I'm same here as say hello to DC. And if you haven't already done the YouTubey things, I am going to ask if you could like the video. That would be incredible. And I'd love to see you back here next time for part 3. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And a big thank you to my special guest who is off screen and gave some good feedback that I would not have thought of because I am not a lawyer. Hope y'all have a good evening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.